Welcome back to Right Answers Mostly, a podcast on what you didn't learn in history class, but you really wanted to. My name's Claire Donald.
And my name is Tess Bellomo.
And Rammies, we have two very special guests with us today. We are here with Rin and Mabel. Rin and Mabel are former journalists at 60 Minutes, and they have since started their own podcast, Newsgirls, a podcast geared towards our Gen Z and millennial peers. Their goal is to make being informed about the world cool and exciting. So join them for 30-minute episodes every Thursday. Hi, Rin and Mabel.
Hi, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for being
excited.
here. Yes, we are so excited to have you.
I think there's a lot of crossover of what we do, of just trying to get people talking about what's going on in the world, what happened in the world, history, all of that. So I think our Rammies are really going to enjoy you guys.
Good. We hope so.
No, they definitely will. I was listening to an episode today and I was like, oh, this is the Rammies will like. The Rammies will like for sure.
I love your guys' name. Rammies is so good. We're still working on ours, but Rammies is a good one.
We did agree on one, but
we did not. We have different ideas.
You guys will know when it comes you'll just feel it and you'll be like, this is right. It's like a gut thing.
Right.
All right. Then we don't know.
Still working to find it. But y'all are bringing us some conspiracy theories today. And speaking of the Rammies, if there's one thing they love, it is conspiracy theories.
Yes. And this is a historic one from literally 600 years ago. And it's still tantalizing. So hopefully they will enjoy.
So what are we talking about today?
Okay. So we're talking about who is the real William Shakespeare, because we all just think it's a guy named William Shakespeare, but there's a chance it was someone writing under the pen name William Shakespeare. And so we can tell you how we came to be experts in this very niche topic. So after we left 60 Minutes, we worked at 60 Minutes for many years as associate producers there. We moved to Jeopardy, and we actually worked at Jeopardy for half a year, and we helped them develop more or incorporate more news content into their clues on the weekly on the shows. And while we were there, we got to develop a special project.
Yeah, we basically were helping develop a podcast where Ren and I would kind of pick a clue that we were really interested in the week and do some more research on it and talk to all the Jeopardy fans about more of what was kind of behind the clue. So we did some demos of what this podcast would look like. And so one of the clues that we chose was, what is the identity behind Shakespeare? And the clue referred to this person named the Earl of Oxford. And so that's where we were like, what is this? And we kind of started looking into what this could be.
Okay, well, the fact that you guys worked on Jeopardy, Tess's mom sends us Jeopardy questions all the time that we talked about on Ram. So, I mean, I'm even more obsessed now.
Yeah, we're always like, is Jeopardy a Rammy? Are they listening to us? Which,
Jeopardy is definitely a Rammy.
Also, I love that you guys have had so many, your best friends, right? And you've had so many jobs together. Dream. The dream.
I know, it's so unusual that we've followed each other. Now this is our third job together. It is a dream.
This is what Claire and I are now saying, that we'll never work apart. So we understand. We're once you find someone you can work with, it's just hold on tight.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
And we want to hear your connections to Shakespeare. So I'll go, I can share first because this is my go-to fun fact in social settings. I went to Shakespeare camp for 3 summers in a row during high school. So I identify very much with Shakespeare.
Obsessed with that.
We are in a safe space here. We've got some theater kids.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Mabel wasn't immediately sold.
I wasn't sold on doing a demo on this clue because I was just why are we do we need to do all of this research on a conspiracy theory? Are we actually going to be talking about this it's fact? And I don't really know if I care about Shakespeare past high school. So I was I don't know if I want to do this, Ren. I really don't. But then we started looking into it more, and the amount of scholarly papers and movies and books that were on Shakespeare's identity was really surprising to me. And then we think you guys will think this is cool. Apparently in 1987, 3 Supreme Court justices in the US held a globally televised mock trial in which they heard legitimate cases on who Shakespeare could be. So I was like, if it's good enough for the Supreme Court, it is good enough for me. Let's do it.
That's what we live by.
That's crazy. Was it wasn't too busy in 1987? That seems something to be yeah, sure. Let's take our time.
We need some levite around here, so let's mix it up.
Well, I love those facts. I am a previous, maybe still theater kid. I was in A Midsummer Night's Dream twice. Once Once in 7th grade and once my sophomore year of high school as the same character. I played Puck. So
Wow.
it was very different. Like in 7th grade, I was really cute. Like I had like little like 2 buns and like I looked like a fairy. And then in college, it was not that. They were like, you're going to be unattractive, and I will not pull up the photos for many reasons. Yeah, but I did play Puck twice, so I love some Shakespeare.
Yeah, I feel like Shakespeare, I was also an actor and in acting camps and stuff like that too. And I feel like Shakespeare was always the one where I was like, why? You know what I mean? I did a scene from Othello, the really like dark one where she dies. So yeah, I feel like I put in the work with Shakespeare as well. But it's just crazy to think that something that old has stood the test of time and is still referenced. And yeah, it's fascinating.
Well, we love our Shakespeare, like, like 10 Things I Hate About You and She's the Man are all based on Shakespeare plays. And it's just so smart. His stories are always so good. I mean, you're really just like, damn, that is a tight script, you know?
Totally.
Yes, and so many amazing plot twists, like a twist at the end. Like he really like was one of the first to do that well.
Yes,
completely. And we love the movie Shakespeare in Love. I feel like I was watching that one time. I was like, holy shit, that is a hot man. Gwyneth Paltrow.
That was a sexual awakening.
Yes,
Yeah,
it really was.
Yes. Well, I guess so. To get into who the real Shakespeare was, first we'll lay the foundation of why are people even questioning who he was? Like, why can't we all just be like, he lived in England and his name was William Shakespeare? Well, I guess there's not a lot of evidence of his life. There's no, like, he never signed a play or anything, so there's no, like, signatures that way. He only signed, like, a couple legal documents. And in his will, when he died, he doesn't mention having any manuscripts or plays. So, like, where did they go? Why would he not have those?
Right, because when he was alive, like they were producing his plays, correct? Like,
Yeah.
So it's like that. It was a part of his brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's crazy. I mean, that's just not smart. Like, you gotta write that shit down, honey.
But I'm just saying, like, you would think that would mean so much to him. That wouldn't be an oversight, even, you know?
Did his wife write anything about him? Because his wife is Anne Hathaway, right? Isn't that right?
Yes.
Did she say anything in her will about like the plays?
I guess not. No.
Interesting.
Weird.
And then also Shakespeare was an actor, which at that time was considered lower class. This is like one of the funny differences between now, which is like it's the highest class you can get. And in that day, it was like lower class because you're performing for the upper class people. And critics and experts say, looking at his text, like he was so smart. We were just talking about how his words have stood the test of time. He invented so many words. He had so creative. How would he have had that intellect having such a limited education that an actor would have had at that time? So that's another kind of little red flag.
I have heard that, but maybe he just liked doing both, put on different hats, you could say.
Yeah,
it's true. If you're not convinced yet, don't worry, we have some more points. So it turns out that at the time, pseudonyms for writers especially were really common because apparently writers would get their like arms cut off if they wrote anything that was very offensive to the royal court or the queen, so they would take up these fake names. And so a lot of these conspiracy theorists believe that Shakespeare was a front to shield whoever was actually the writer's identity because of social rank reasons, either security reasons, maybe gender reasons. And then Shakespeare, as we know, was alive in the mid-1500s, but his identity wasn't questioned then. It first started becoming a thing in the mid-19th century. And now there are 80 theories on who he could be, which is like crazy. That's just like so many theories. And the most notable theory that we're going to start with is that Shakespeare is someone called the Earl of Oxford.
Never heard.
Me either.
Okay, so the Earl of Oxford, his real name was Edward de Vere. He was quite a character. So he lived during Shakespeare's time and he was British nobility. Obviously, he was an earl. And he was, like you pointed out, because he was upper class, very well educated, very well traveled. So he actually went to Italy, France, Denmark, these places where Shakespeare set his plays. He actually went there. He would have known how to write about them. And that's what you would expect from Shakespeare's intellect.
I didn't even think about that because you have to put it in such a different perspective. It's completely different worlds. Like they had no idea what these places would be like at all. And if you're not educated, there's so many more people who can even read about it. That's so interesting. I never thought about that.
So like someone was like the Earl wouldn't want to why would he not want the credit? Just because of how they thought about writers and actors?
Yeah. So we have The conspiracy theorists have an answer for that. So this Earl, he was an English peer. He was a court favorite. He was like a poet, but he was apparently really well known for having an insane temper, which stopped him from like rising the ranks of the English government. So because of his kind of crazy behavior, he eventually fell out of favor with the Queen. He was exiled from court, and he was even imprisoned in the Tower of London. And that kind of helps paint the picture of like why he would use a pseudonym. It's because he was shunned basically from high society.
Was this during Queen Elizabeth I's time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because wasn't she hanging out with Shakespeare? We have an episode on Queen Elizabeth I, so I remember kind of in that way.
Yes, and there's actually some conspiracy theorists think Queen Elizabeth was the real Shakespeare. We're not going to get into that one because we do not buy into that. But that is one people think.
Yeah, maybe a stretch.
Yeah, I'm like, I just don't think at the time.
Going more into evidence data points that might point to it being Oxford as the real Shakespeare. I guess in his life, his friends knew that he was a secret writer, so he actually did famously use a pen name. And in some like letters his friends wrote to him, they called him one of the best comedic writers of the time. But there's no comedic writings in his name. No one knows what comedy this friend would have been referring to. So, and obviously, who was the greatest comedic writer of the time? Shakespeare.
Shakespeare. Wow.
Okay.
So there is this belief that Shakespeare could be his pseudonym. A writer apparently once said this of Oxford, excuse my like Latin, vultus tilla vibrat, which apparently means thy countenance shakes spears. So he actually said that of Oxford, and they're saying that like Oxford could be Shakespeare, and like that's a crazy line.
Completely. But so there is like a real guy named William Shakespeare. That was an actor in the plays though too, right?
Yes, there was a real guy. So the theory would be that they used him, this real guy, as the front because he would be too low for the Queen to go after him. Like she couldn't get mad really about anything because he didn't matter. He was insignificant.
Wow,
so
just let people have their creative outlet, my God.
I know. And then another point that is in Oxford's favor is that he loved the arts and he loved theater, and he actually sponsored theater troupes during his life and like gave the money. So he clearly was interested in theater, but never did anything about it. It's questionable.
Right. Because like, why would he? Because again, he wants to like rise in the ranks.
Right. And then I guess they found a copy of Oxford's Bible, and there were handwritten notes in his Bible that showed a really strong correlation to biblical references in Shakespeare's works. So the more often a biblical passage is actually referenced in Shakespeare, the more likely it was to have been marked in Oxford's Bible. And so that's like the first of a lot of like literary parallels that people have pointed to.
That's so interesting. God, if I were this guy and this was actually true, I'm sure he had no idea like where his work would go.
I know, like being like, damn, like you should have done it.
Like you don't want to like disrupt moving up in court, but we didn't know is that you would like have one of the most famous names of all time.
This might be a dumb question, but like Shakespeare like got paid, right, to do this? Like, would he get a cut of the like, did he get paid?
He would have gotten paid, and that is actually another part of some of the theories because he wasn't a wealthy man. Like, he was never a wealthy man. So where did that money go? I'm still assuming, though, because of the times, because the people putting on the productions weren't special. It might not be like the monetary gains that you would expect today. So you could still live like lower down, I guess.
Do we know who owns Shakespeare's estate?
Currently, I mean, you can go visit it. Like I've visited it.
I guess I mean like his name.
Did he own it?
Like his name, his plays, like who gets the money from that?
Yeah, because like someone has to get like even like cuts from like She's the Man, right? Like that's based off Shakespeare's intellectual property. Like someone has to benefit from it, right?
This is when we tell the Rammies to do their homework.
Yeah, you guys let us know.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
Yes. And so there's a couple looking at Shakespeare's works. There's a couple plot points that people say like point to Oxford's life. Like in Hamlet, he was captured by pirates and left naked on the shore, if we all remember our high school Shakespeare. Yeah. And in real life, Oxford actually was captured by pirates who left him naked on the shore of England.
Also, like, yikes, what a life.
Yeah, like, are you okay?
Yeah.
That's also just like so specific. Like, I can't imagine. I mean, it was a different time, but I can't imagine that was happening that often.
Yeah, let's hope not.
Yeah.
And you're living to tell the tale. Probably not.
Totally.
And then there's just like other things like Oxford famously had this rival who he got into like a brawl with at a tennis match one time. And I guess this is like a quote that he called his rival a puppy, which apparently was a huge insult in those days because a puppy like it's like you're not a full-grown dog. Like you follow at the toes of people, like you're a wannabe. And so his rival was so like offended by this, they ended up getting into a brawl. And in Henry V, basically that exact scene happens where there's a brawl at a tennis match between two rivals. So there's just little, synchronicities.
Well, housewives still use that insult. We're seeing that on Real Housewives Miami right now.
We should bring back, I've seen TikToks of like, if you really want to like confuse someone, here's some Shakespearean insults that you'll be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, that is cruel.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
He stood the test of time somehow, so that's nice. But I guess like to kind of round out on some of our points on why this guy is Shakespeare, apparently something else people point to is that Hamlet's dying speech closely resembles the ending of like a very old English poem that was really famous called Beowulf. But the time Hamlet came out, there was only one copy of Beowulf that existed, and it was owned by one of Oxford's tutors. So obviously that was the inspiration, but how would someone actually named Shakespeare have access to that poem? Very limited people had it, and they traced it back to Oxford somehow.
So, okay, you said that the conspiracy theories started in the 19th century?
Yeah. Mid-19th century.
So what was someone like Oxford's family or something? Like, hey, actually, you should look at my guy. Like, how did this come up? And
like who started it?
Yeah.
I mean, it ended up just kind of emerging out of a lot of literary circles. This would have to be a Rammies do your homework on exactly what, yes. But it just like, there's so many, there's like different people wrote books about it. Mark Twain even wrote about it. It just started captivating people's imagination. I'm sure there was some, like the first domino to fall, I'm sure was someone just thinking how could one person even write all of these works? That's also like a huge question and be so like prolific. And then it just all started poking holes.
Yeah, it's like, it is strange that there's not a lot of like documentation of his life. Because like we have lots of people from this time period that we know a lot about. There's a lot of portraits. There's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So that is strange.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, well, okay, so to kind of piggyback off of what you just said, most professional Shakespearean scholars believe in the Stratfordian theory, which is that Shakespeare's actually who he says he is. And they say that there wasn't much written record about anyone from the time, especially because he was a commoner. And there's actually a little bit more about Shakespeare than others. So they say that that isn't like the best point. A lot of these people don't buy into the concept that you had to be a noble to write about kings and queens. You didn't have to be of higher education to reference Greek and Latin classics. And the biggest factor discrediting this theory specifically is that Shakespeare's works were released after Oxford's death. So like, how was he able to do that?
Which Oxfordians would say it wasn't all of them, but some of them were released after Oxford's death. Maybe he had a friend like release them so that it looked like it was really Shakespeare releasing them, but he had written them before he died.
So how many it was like a lot were released after his death, or maybe he had written it before and just haven't released it yet in general, like
right.
even finished work. But that's
right.
Interesting.
Yeah, that does make sense about, well, he was a commoner, so why would people be documenting? Like, that part makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the Oxford theory. That's definitely the strongest one just because of all of the literary, like, overlap and his status makes sense too.
There are like two other like theories that we can like really quickly like touch on,
and they both are very like well educated, kind of higher like status men, because like you're saying, like we're saying, you would need that. And one of them, this is one you might have heard of, I think it's probably the most famous, is Sir Francis Bacon, because he was a famous character in history. Anyway, he was Bacon.
Bacon.
He was like one of the great
I feel like I have heard of him.
Yeah.
You definitely have.
So he was one of the big minds of his time. He was a philosopher, a writer. He was truly a Renaissance man. But what he wrote about was like science and politics and law and ethics. So it was like all the harder stuff, which was like intellectually like respectable at that time. And he never wrote a poem or play under his name. So it would make sense that if he had that creative side to him and wanted to keep writing, he would use a pen name. Tess, you like pointed this out in the beginning, because it would have otherwise seemed like lowly of him to rewriting like these comedies at that point in time. And the fun part about the Bacon theory is that they claim, or people who believe this theory claim, to have discovered a cipher, so secret messages in Shakespeare's works that say that Bacon was the real Shakespeare. So it's like coded messages. It's kind of like the Shakespearean equivalent of Taylor Swift's Easter eggs today.
Well, thank you for bringing it there. Yes.
Of course. We try to every episode bring it there.
Yeah, we had to. So they claim like that Shakespeare used 2 different fonts, and he would have one main font, and then wherever he placed the secondary font sent like secret messages, and you'd have to know the code. So not only did he reveal that his real name was Bacon, that Bacon was the writer, he also revealed some crazy tea from the time, from Elizabethan times. So he also allegedly revealed in secret code that Sir Francis Bacon was the illegitimate son of Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, the Virgin Queen? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what he said. And that he was the rightful heir to the English throne. He put that all in secret code.
Smart.
And honestly, I would do it too. That was my plan. So that's a fun one. But obviously, we'll bring everyone back down to earth. There's no direct evidence that Bacon was Shakespeare. And in fact, the counter evidence is that sometimes Shakespeare would try to speak about like scientific ideas, and he would kind of mangle it. So someone who actually was this like great scientific mind probably wouldn't have gotten that stuff wrong.
So fair. That's how people are going to know that it wasn't a scientist behind our podcast as well.
And then I guess we have one last quick little theory. There's a group of conspiracy theorists that believe that Christopher Marlowe was the real Shakespeare, and you might have heard his name because he wrote like Dr. Faustus and a lot of other like really big plays from the time. So he was like a really famous writer. And so people point to like how his writing is really similar to Shakespeare's, his like life timeline really lines up with Shakespeare. But the biggest like reason people have to believe that he could be Shakespeare is actually because he died under really suspicious circumstances. So Christopher Marlowe was actually in the Queen's service as an intelligence agent. So he worked like, you know, basically as like a spy for the Queen. And before his death, he was in trouble for a lot of things. He faced accusations of like atheism and blasphemy, and all of these charges were considered treasonous, and he was probably going to be like executed. And before he was executed, or before that was set, he was on bail, and he was basically stabbed when he was around a bunch of these Queen's intelligence agents. And so they found the killer, and apparently he was pardoned with like very unusual swiftness. And so there was a lot of suspicion about like, why was this guy let off, and like, how did he die? And so the theory that everyone has believing that Marlowe might be Shakespeare is that his death was faked with state collusion, and he basically escaped and wrote Shakespeare under a new identity. And the reason, again, they really believe that is because he died in 1593, and that's when Shakespeare's first work came out and continued to come out after that.
Okay, so he had written all these things before, and then they released it after. Well, he wasn't really dead.
Right, they basically like escaped and was writing all of this Shakespeare under a new identity. But then, of course, like the biggest hole in this whole plot is that there's no evidence to like believe that Marlowe didn't actually die. It's just like the way he died was weird.
I feel like that's with all conspiracy theories. It's like there's not really evidence. That's like why it's kind of a conspiracy, you know? So it just keeps us guessing.
It's just fun. What do you guys think it, like, who do you think it is? Do you have a strong opinion?
I'm torn. I really want to believe that it's the real William Shakespeare, like this like lowly actor, because I think that story, like he could just have been born this literary genius, didn't need a lot of education. And I think there are those like lightning bolt type like just gifts given to people sometimes. And that's what I want to believe. But I am very like intrigued by a lot of this evidence, because at that time that was so unusual.
Totally.
What about you guys? Did we sway you at all?
I kept going back and forth because this is just like, if someone is like, this is it, I'm like, okay. And then when you were like, but
Yeah.
you know, like he didn't have a lot of, no one was following him around. No one was documenting him. Some people are just born creative geniuses that I'm like, I want to believe, you know, just to honor my theater kid, I want to believe it's him, but it gives me pause. Gives
her serious pause. Yeah, I agree. I want it to be William Shakespeare because it's like, at this point, what are we trying to prove? You know, just let him have it.
Doesn't let him have it, yeah.
Let the poor man have it.
Yeah.
I know, it's fun to imagine, like, this is the same as, like, keeping up with the Real Housewives drama for some, like, fringe literary groups that are, like, sitting around with their, like, wine, and they're, like, arguing who do they think the real Shakespeare is.
We're all the
Totally.
same. Like, you know, we all just
At
want...
the end of the day.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh, this was fascinating, y'all. I love this. We love a conspiracy
Same.
theory.
We do, and our Rammies really do.
Yes, and we love that you guys cover so much history because that is so underappreciated and they're important stories.
Well, like we said at the beginning, it's so important to have, and we know that our listeners will love this, like a news source that is relatable and that you guys can say it in a way that everyone can understand. I think people just feel very intimidated by the news, and so they don't listen to the news, and then they're not informed. So thank you for doing the Lord's work.
Yes, you guys are amazing.
And can you tell our listeners where they can find you on social media and all of the above?
Yeah, so you can listen to our podcast on Spotify, Apple, just anywhere you listen to podcasts, or watch us on YouTube and social media, everything. It's Newsgirls Podcast, so you can find us really anywhere.
Amazing. And we'll have y'all's info in the show notes as well.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll talk to you soon.